Welcome to Bridging Generations in Sales and Outreach. This is where baby boomers and Gen Xers come to level up. I am your host, Butch Nicholson, and I appreciate you being here today. Uh, if you're a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, you probably built your career based on relationships. And relationships are still why people buy. But the way we build those relationships has changed. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm excited to have a friend of mine, Mark Norris, on the call today. Uh, I'm going to let Mark share his story of how he went from corporate America to helping founder owned businesses. And I think this is a perfect example for how Gen Xers and baby boomers uh, can see themselves making this shift in how we build relationships. So, Mark, I appreciate you being here today, and tell us a little bit about your story.
Be happy to do so. First of all, thank you, Butch, for having me on. I think it is helpful to know that as far as the baby boomers and Gen X, I'm right at the crossover point. So I was born in the last year that is deemed to be baby boomers, but I still have a lot of qualities of those baby boomers. For example, when I got my undergraduate degree in finance from the University of North Carolina and started working, I joined a bank. And the way my parents did things, I thought I would retire at that bank in about 35 or 40 years later. And lo and behold, we don't live in that kind of world anymore. And I did transition from banking to the role of a small business president after about 15 years. And with that, I joined a company that had $2 million in annual revenue. And during the 14 years that I was a president, it grew to 29 million in annual revenue. And it sold to a private equity firm, and enjoyed working for the private equity firm for a little bit, for 4 years. And then I figured out I was missing something. And so I really kind of did a lot of looking at myself, self-awareness, and figured out that what I was missing was I really enjoyed helping that small business owner grow her business. So I decided 2 years ago to form my own business to help small businesses grow. So in the process, we're talking about improving financials, selling, people issues. All those things are vital in helping a small business grow. So that's my overall background for you, Butch.
So, Mark, one of the things that I have experienced myself, uh, I have made this mistake myself, is founder owned companies, normally the founder, in some cases, is the brilliant guy that has some great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can be somebody that was really good at sales and thinks, I don't really need to work for this guy. I can do this myself. And uh, I believe what they know about sales, and I know this was true with me, uh, can actually hurt them as they start trying to build a sales team. You know, they tell people what they did, but they don't understand why they can't do what they did.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I think what happens a lot of time is someone is a subject matter expert in a certain area, and obviously that means they're by definition they're good at it. So they want to do that every day, and all of a sudden the business forms. They enjoy what they do so much. They're the only seller, although they probably don't look at themselves as a salesperson. They're just the owner, and they tend to look for people like them, the subject matter experts, the extroverts, the more charismatic type of personality that is the stereotype of a good salesperson. But you those owners hire someone, but they don't tell them what to do or how to do it. They just have this uncommunicated expectation that the new salesperson is going to be as successful as they had been, but there's no script, there's no playbook, there's nothing created or given to the new salesperson to tell them how to go about building business. So they hire someone like themselves, and then they don't tell them what to do or how to do it, and they get frustrated and kind of think it's the salesperson's fault.
Well, with 45 years in sales, I've found it's always the salesperson's fault.
Well, if they're gonna, yeah, they get a lot of the blame and they get a lot of the credit. They have to deal with the ups and the downs.
So if there's one thing you would tell a founder owner,
yeah,
that he or she needs to make sure they have in place before they hire a salesperson, what would that be?
The word that I like to use, and I've seen it lots of places, is a playbook. They simply have to take the time, and this is very difficult for a lot of founder owners. They just think everybody should come in and keep doing what they're doing, but they need to create a process. It sounds boring. They need to build an infrastructure for what they expect of a salesperson and how they want the salesperson to approach the job. So all this can go into a playbook so that when someone starts, they know exactly what to do. In essence, they give them a binder and say, this is how success happens at my company. They've got to not just expect them to do something, but they really need to show them how to do it.
So let me ask you this question. I've experienced this. If you had 100 heads of sale or founder, owner guys or gals that have been in sales, and you ask them if they have an ideal client profile, they would say yes. But when you ask them what it is, they don't really have one.
Correct. Yes, I would agree with that. They know in their mind who they're selling to most of the time, but there are definitions to that. Definitions such as geography, industry, annual revenue size, number of employees, and that's how you define your ideal client profile. But they're just, it's in their head, but not written down anywhere.
Well, and one of the things I found that really hinders sales in that is, I believe most people, well, first they want to know who you are before they care about what you do. And another thing they care about is they want to believe you can solve a problem they have before they care how you do it. And if you don't understand the problems that your ideal client profile has, you're just wasting words.
Yeah, agreed. And that's where the founder owner has an advantage, because they do know that industry like the back of their hand. And what they fail to do is to really do any training to that new hire, that new head of sales that they hire. They're not always training that person on the ins and outs and the details, but there is a product knowledge component to selling as well as a process component, and both of those have to be addressed. And the part about the industry knowledge, that's in the the product knowledge side of things. But yes, I would agree completely on that.
So how do you get with the founder owners you deal with, how do you get that out of their head into a way that they can communicate it to their sales force that they bring in?
Yeah. A lot of the times it just starts with a conversation. Nothing fancy. Just sit down and have a conversation. And I might, for example, do some of that documentation and that playbook building for them so that they get an end result that they're looking for, because they may not really know how to create a playbook. They may not know the difference between the process and the product. They're just out selling. So we can break that down, and I usually do some of that for them, because they may not simply be wired that way. So it's a simple conversation, and then I can take it and do some documentation and give them back something that they can give to their sales team to be successful.
So tell me a little bit about how you do that. How do you pull that out of their heads? Because I know that's a lot of times, I know I was this way. That's just something I assumed everybody knew,
Yeah.
which was
Well,
completely false.
yeah. Honestly, I just get them talking. I know that I'm looking for, what's their goal. I like to use that phrase. What's their one big thing that they're trying to accomplish, and then I'm looking for some trigger words, like here are the three top things that help guarantee success in this particular sales process, and then maybe the three things that are impediments to success in closing a sale. So I will be asking them the questions that help create the table of contents for the playbook, if you will. But it's just a conversation, and I'll get them talking about, I get them telling stories about some big successes that worked well for them, and maybe some failures that did not work well. And then I discerned how to convert that into the playbook language.
Um, Another thing I was told early on, Mark, and it seems like it seems to me what you're talking about is having a logical, repeatable process for sales.
Yes. Um, and I'm going to give you an example of that. I'm jotting down a note here so I don't forget it. I'm going to give you an example. So when I'm going to go back to that word playbook again, because the playbook helps guarantee that logical, repeatable process. So imagine when young people play football in the backyard, somebody's the quarterback and they just say hike, and they all run around waiting for the person to throw them the football. Imagine that on Sunday afternoons when we're watching professional football players. They don't just say hike and run around the field. There is a very specific role that every single one of those players has, and it comes in the playbook, and every play that they run has a name. And so that's what they do in the huddle. This is the play we're going to run. So they know exactly what to do. And converting that to sales is, this is what we do as a business. This is how we're successful. We're going to talk about this every single time we talk with a client. And it doesn't matter if the client is big or small, we're going to be saying pretty much the same things. But that default to that playbook is how we help guarantee that success, so that it is logical and repeatable.
So one thing you shared with me, Mark, that I thought was very insightful, and it sounds so easy. It's something that I believe people may assume they do, but they don't. And that is actually documenting that process before you go out and hire 5 people to use that process.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because, and the importance of that is, and a lot of founder owners who hire salespeople for the first time, and we were alluding to this earlier in the conversation. Someone starts work, and here's the desk, here's the phone, and okay, make it rain. bring in the sales. Well, there is some direction that needs to be provided. So that documentation, that writing things down, that helps guarantee the probability of success, helps increase the probability of success when that first hire comes on, or when the 10th sales hire comes on. You've got to have something that shows them more about the company, what to do, and how to do it. That process, they've got to see that in writing so they know how to do it properly.
Uh, so another thing that comes to mind with that, let's say that we have a great sales process. We've hired 3 people. Our goal was to be at a 500,000, and we've done that using that process, but we want to get to 2 million.
Yeah.
And we realize how do we're going to realize at some point that how we got to a 500,000,000 is not going to get us to 2 million.
Yeah.
So how do you help founder owners see that before it happens?
Yeah. Well, the phrase that we've all heard probably before is, and I think there may even be a book by this title, "What got you here will not get you there." So that's exactly what you're saying. What got us to 500,000 in sales will not be what gets us to 2 million in sales. So there's when I was leading that small business that grew from 2 million to 29 million, there are inflection points along the life cycle of a business where the technology that you have is not good enough anymore. The number of salespeople that you have is not enough. You need more, or the structure of your sales team is not proper. You might need a junior salesperson to take the admin stuff off of the actual salespeople. So there are always tweaks along the way. So I tell the founders, you've got to be willing to do some things that might be a little bit uncomfortable. There are those inflection points where we can see them coming. When sales begin to stall, then that's the trigger. That's the trigger to, okay, now it's time for something else. We either need to get that junior salesperson or another senior salesperson, or we need different technology or a different CRM. So I just prepare the owners that there will be change, but it will be a good change, because whatever they did in the early days is just not enough to get them where they want to eventually get to.
Do you find some owners or founder owners that have that vision, like they can realize at 1 million, if the goal, let's just say I'm making these numbers up, but the goal is
Sure.
2 million
Yeah.
and we've gotten to 1 million, but I want to get to 5 million, but at 1 million, I can see the 5 million.
There are some of those out there, and there's plenty of them out there. And I'll give you a great example. When I left banking and joined that small business that had 2 million in revenue, this was so the owner was a lady who had a very specific subject matter knowledge, and on her own, with a family and 3 children, she had grown the company from 0 to $2 million in revenue completely on her own. And it was only after she had already reached 2 million in revenue, she determined, again, by herself, hey, I need somebody with business background to come in here and help me grow this business. And she didn't need convincing. She had reached that conclusion by herself. And so she was a person who did have the vision and the strategy and was not afraid to take risk. Now, it wasn't reckless risk, it was calculated risk, but she was not afraid to invest in a technology or a person at those inflection points so that sales could begin to grow again. So there are the visionaries out there, and those who think strategically, they're going to understand a little better. But I do find those founder owners that are more operational minded, maybe the doers, they can they can learn pretty quickly the advantages of making certain tweaks in the business when they see the results.
And I assume that that's something that you can help them with.
Oh yeah, I've got multiple different services under the area of money issues, people issues, or time issues, or even how to grow the business and leadership development. So all of those are all different levers that we push and pull and raise and lower to help tweak the business so that the growth continues as the owner wants it to.
So, Mark, you said one thing when we talked before. Pardon me, I am losing my voice. Uh, that I had to laugh at me about
Yeah.
that. You said charisma and being a closer is not what really works anymore. And
Yeah.
so you said you were on the younger years of baby boomers. I'm right in the middle. Half baby boomers are older than me, and half are younger.
Okay. All right.
And you probably have to be at least my age to remember this movie. But there was a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah.
And the one takeaway from that movie for salespeople was coffee is for closers. And it was all about closing. And
Yeah.
From what you've said, it's not all about closing right now, or in the environment that we're in today.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I've heard of the movie, have not seen it. So it sounds like I need to watch that.
You might not even be able to find it. It's so old.
I want to tell you, so when I was in banking, one of my roles was foreign currency sales, and it was a trading desk, but it was a currency desk. So my job was to sell currencies to multinational companies. And when you hung up the phone, if there was a profit on that transaction of a certain amount, then you were referred to as a closer. And guess what? The word becomes, if you remove the C from the word closer, the word becomes loser. So just to give you an idea, so you were either in that world, and back to your point, back in the day, you were either a loser or a closer. Did you have the C? That would determine which one of those two you were. But selling has matured in so many positive ways, because I personally think it's all about the process, or not all about the process. The process has a significant amount to do. If there are certain things that we find, we've got data, we've got CRMs, we can run metrics, we can run reports and look at our KPIs. So we know who's performing the activities that lead to sales. And we say, if you don't perform this level of activities, you might not be with us long, but if you do perform them, you will be able to win deals and you will be successful. So what used to be the charismatic closer is almost anyone that is willing to do the activities or the little things and follow a method or a process, they can be successful in sales as well.
I just share this real quick. When I started in sales, which was like 45 years ago, everybody that had 2 years or less sat in this same bullpen, and there was a big board in the front of the room that had everybody's name on it, and it had how much money you had made so far that month.
Oh, wow.
Which would probably violate about 14 HR rules in this day and time. But that was all it was based on. How much have you done?
Yeah. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah. So, Mark, I don't remember us discussing this, but you said something about the the death of the Rolex model and what's replacing it.
Yeah. Um, the Rolex is all about flash, and look at me, look what I've accomplished. I'm able to wear a Rolex. To me, if I want to continue that watch analogy, the flashy Rolex has been replaced by the reliable smartwatch. And the reason I use that analogy is whether I'm exercising or just have an appointment coming up or going for a walk, I'm using my timer multiple times a day personally on my smartwatch for different reasons. So the reason I use that analogy is if a salesperson has a method to follow and they know what they're supposed to do, they're going to be successful. And the flash doesn't mean anything. That's the closer. And the smartwatch is really following the process.
It makes sense. That's a good
Yeah.
analogy. So, Mark, you've got a founder owner.
Okay.
He's working with you. He's bought into what you're helping him with. You've gotten clarity on who you're selling to, why they're buying. What's the next move?
The next move is to hire a salesperson and make sure you've interviewed well, you've got the right questions. I even have great interview questions, how to hire properly, how to increase your chances of hiring the right person that's going to be with you long term. And then after that, you give them that documented playbook, the processes that you mentioned. But you've got to, in today's world, this is where you get the smartwatch analogy coming into play. You got to measure what that person's doing. And in the old days, and it's still this to some extent, it was simply how many calls have you made? There's still a lot of that going on, but it's the same concept. Are you doing the activities that lead to a final sale? And those get measured in any number of ways. And the CRMs that are out there today help provide a wealth of knowledge. So back to your point, summarizing what you were saying, if this founder owner has done all the work on the front end, ideal client profile, why they're buying, the processes are documented, then it's a matter of hiring properly, hiring well, and then the second is after, and then once they've started, you want to train them well, and then after that, you've just got to measure the results.
So let's say you've got a client of yours. You've got you believe and they believe that we've got the right playbook. We've got the right processes, and you hire a salesperson. I would assume that once a salesperson starts, you've got to look at two different things. Is it the playbook or is it the salesperson? Either way, even if it's really working or if it's not working.
Okay. It's with my mind thinking about if it's working, is it the playbook or the salesperson? I would say yes. Yes to both. You've got to have the good playbook, but you also have to have someone who's willing to follow the playbook in order to get those results. Going back to that football example, everybody could read the playbook, but if the receiver is running out for a pass and turns the wrong way, then the football is not going to be waiting on that receiver. It's going to be a miss. It's going to be a missed sale, and is bringing it back to a corporate environment. So you do need both. And if it's successful in a sale, I think both have contributed to it. And if it's not successful in a sale, then I think it's incumbent upon following those metrics and helping you determine, hey, if we're getting this much activity, if this person's doing all the things that we expect them to do and still not getting results, then in that case, maybe it's not the person. In that case, the playbook could be outdated, for example. Maybe buyers have moved on to a different version of the product or service that business owner is selling. So if things don't succeed, but the KPIs tell you that the person is doing the activities, it might require an update in the playbook.
That's great. And I believe it. I don't believe. Well, I believe because it has been my experience that a founder owner would need someone like you, because we all have blind spots.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. Every person on this planet has them, and we need somebody that's taking a look at it besides us.
Yeah. And you're right. We do all have the blind spots. There are some founder owners who do some good things and reach out to others. One of the top reasons that new businesses fail within 10 years is not making a plan and not talking to others, bringing other people in to help you figure out what's wrong. So those who might be a little more stubborn is the only word that comes to mind, and think that they can just get themselves through it, they may face some tough days. But those who are willing to learn, and I think learning is a big word here, who are willing to learn how to make themselves better rather than blaming the economy, the government, whatever. The learners tend to be more successful long term, and they've just got to be willing to it. And there are plenty of those out there. Unfortunately, there are plenty that don't want to seek help.
All right, Mark, as we wrap up here, two more questions. One you knew was coming, and one that I haven't told you about.
Okay.
The one I have told you about. Well, if you could say one thing to the owner founder, or one thing you make sure you share when you have like your first meeting with an owner founder, what would that be?
You've got to be willing to do the work to get the results that you want to receive. You can't just want it to happen. You've actually got to do a lot of work in order to get there.
Yeah, there's no magic. There's no magic pixie dust.
There's not. Just good hard work, planning has a lot to do with it, and surrounding yourself with good people.
All right, Mark, this is my favorite question.
Okay.
So what if Mark today could tell Mark 20 years ago one thing, what would that be?
Oh, this is actually an easy one for me, because remember, I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers. And what is the baby boomer mindset is, I've got to work hard. I've got to work long hours. That's what identifies me. And I would tell the Mark of 20 years ago, don't work so much. That's simple. Don't work as much.
So say a little more about that, because I happen to agree with that, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
When a lot of times when we're young and maybe just out of school, we're in our first job or so, we're just trying to impress people around us, and we'll work whatever hours are required, to get that attaboy, or you did a good job. And those help us go a long way sometimes. But there's also just as many situations where you can work hours and they don't do anything for you except cause you to miss other important events in your life, which are typically family related. And I've missed my share of family events, and I don't want to, I've heard this expression, I don't want to be in my last days of life and look back and go, I wish I hadn't worked so much. So that is without a doubt my advice to my younger self.
That's great insight, Mark. Hey, Mark, we got one really good question from Frank Palomara, and it's on the bottom of the screen here. Because I'm fixing to lose my voice, I'll let you read it, and then I'll let you answer it.
Yeah. So the question from Frank is, let's say, Mark, you're hired by founder owners. Can you give us an outline of the kind of method or process you installed for sales to follow that turned the sales around? That's a good question, Frank. Thank you for submitting that in. And I think it's as simple as for founder owners to document what makes the company successful. And in other words, the way I would like to start something like that, a conversation like that, is what's the one big thing you're trying to achieve on the sales side? Obviously, it's sell more, but there's more behind that. So I want to know all the details behind what you're trying to achieve in getting those sales. And then I like to know the 3 or 4 things that the owner has seen over time lead to success. And then I want to see the 3 or 4 things that typically rear their heads as impediments to success. For me, that's the outline and the starting point. And then once we have that foundation, we can begin documenting that foundation into what works for them and what other salespeople can follow.
That's a great answer, Mark. I appreciate it. So, Mark, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can find me. I think it might be scrolling across your screen here. My phone number is my cell. Direct to me, 678-776-6610. My website is Compass, as in north, south, east, and west, compass-businesscoaching.com. And then my email address is mark@compass-businesscoaching.com.
Well, thanks, Mark. It was great to have you here today. I appreciate it. That was very valuable. That's the good, we think, simple stuff that's hard, and it's always good to be reminded of.
Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. So that's where it takes the work to make the simple work.
So I appreciate everybody watching today. We'll be back next Friday at 10 o'clock, and you can always find all of our episodes on YouTube. You can reach me on LinkedIn, or it's Butch Nicholson at getfistbumps.com. If we can help you in any way, let us know. And Mark, I would assume you're the same.
Yes.
If we can't help you, I'll tell you we can't help you. Chances are really good that I know somebody that can, and I'll be happy to refer them to you. One thing I want you to remember, if you're a baby boomer or a Gen Xer, this isn't about starting over. You know most of what you need to know, but it's about evolving into the different ways to do it. And one thing I found is the new ways are easier. If you just take the time and humble yourself a little bit, knowing you're going to make a mistake or two, and you'll see the best results that you ever have. So have a great weekend. Have a great week. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Bridging Generations in Sales and Outreach.